postseason tyre test is over, and now we can finally see how the situation stands with some of the teams that are not fully prepared with their 2025 lineups, and they are Red Bull and Racing Bulls. Although this tyre test was supposed to give Tsunoda a position to fight for the seat, it does look like the Austrian squad has made up their mind about Lawson and potentially promoting Hadjar from Formula 2 to the Faenza-based squad. But there are obstacles with Perez's contract that they didn't have with any other drivers so far. With this in mind, will we see an entirely shaken up grid within the Red Bull circles? And if so, can this influence Tsunoda to seek a solution elsewhere? Aston Martin, for example. One of the biggest mysteries, and probably the only one remaining to be solved for the 2025 season, is Red Bull and Racing Bull's lineups. And while we do have a general outlook of how things are likely to stand after the talks have been held, and Perez himself admitted he is under threat, nothing is certain. For example, the tyre test in Abu Dhabi was the first and likely the last shot that the Japanese driver would have had when it comes to being Verstappen's teammate from 2025 onwards. And even though the president of Honda Racing, Koji Watanabe, spoke to Horner regarding making this a reality, it's highly unlikely to happen. When talking about this situation, Watanabe said, "I returned to Japan from Abu Dhabi yesterday afternoon, and on Saturday I had various discussions with Horner about the drivers for next season and beyond. As I always say, the team has the right to decide on the driver, so our opinion is merely for reference. But from the HRC side, we believe that Tsunoda has the ability to be promoted to Red Bull and should be one of the candidates. I think what we could do is give him an opportunity to show his abilities to the world. So I asked him to participate in the test, and we were able to make it happen." Tsunoda very clearly analysed the differences between the V-Carb and the RB20 and has given the team very useful advice and comments on that basis. I have confirmed from the report that Tsunoda himself is very satisfied. Tsunoda said that he is very happy that he was able to do the test and felt very confident in the car, which, if you don't know the limitations of, you can't push it to the limit like he did. But it looks like all of this falls on deaf ears, because Red Bull has made up their mind to promote Lawson based on a variety of reasons, with the first one being that he did what was expected from him, and that is to match Tsunoda in performance. Horner has held quite a high opinion of Lawson when talking about the performance of the Kiwi driver, and when rating both of the Racing Bulls drivers, he said, "I think Liam, in challenging circumstances, has done a very good job. If you analyse what he's done in the time that he's had and the race pace that he's had, I think he's done a good job. I think Yuki has done a good job too. So in the event that anything we decide with Checo, they'll be the candidates, obviously, that we'll look towards." Even though Lawson was out-qualified by his teammate in all of the 6 races that they shared the grid together as Racing Bulls drivers, he scored 4 points, which seems to be more than enough for Red Bull to consider him as a replacement for Perez. I know what is probably going through your mind right now. What can Tsunoda possibly do more in order to have a shot at Red Bull? But at this point, it just looks like the team is decisive to go in another direction, and the first shot he will have to be competitive on a greater basis will be with Aston Martin. That is, if Honda pulls some strings and makes changes in one of the most controversial lineups on the grid. With the aging Alonso and the nepotistic relationship between Lance and his father, who owns the team, there is always an opening with the arrival of personnel like Newey and Cardiel, as well as Honda, who will be looking to make massive improvements in the team that fell down so quickly after their initial form in 2023 looked so promising. Be that as it may, the situation in Red Bull stays stationary in terms of their views of the drivers, and even though you would say that Lawson doesn't have the experience to be Verstappen's teammate, he has the stability and the consistency. Throughout the Pirelli tyre test, he drove the most number of laps compared to any other driver, and it just goes to show that not only can he deliver performance in an extraordinary manner, but he can also provide feedback that will help the engineers in pushing the car in the right direction now that they have tons of time to spend in the wind tunnel after finishing 3rd in the Constructors' Championship. The goal for Red Bull was clear from the very start of Perez's downfall. We need 2 drivers who can score points consistently, and while it's safe to assume that Lawson won't be outperforming Verstappen because of the brilliance that the Dutchman possesses and his ability to win championships with the third fastest car on the grid, he could be very close to him in a similar fashion to how Ferrari, McLaren and Mercedes had two drivers finishing close to each other in a race. If that were to happen, then the probable replacement for Lawson in Racing Bulls would be Isaac Hadjar, the driver who was a runner-up for the Formula 2 Championship this year and lost it to Bortoleto, an already confirmed Formula 1 driver, in a battle that went down to the last race in Abu Dhabi. This move is even further proving the fact that Red Bull is ready to get back to their own roots, which is promoting drivers from their academy, as Perez was one of the rare exceptions they made, like they did with Coulthard when it comes to signing drivers that were not part of their own ranks. Tsunoda has threatened that he will destroy every teammate that the team sends to him just to prove that he has what it takes to drive the Red Bull car and replace Verstappen. But even the Japanese driver himself is aware that the chances of this happening are now slim to none, as he raised his own doubts about whether or not he has a shot at the Red Bull seat. When talking about it, Tsunoda said, "I think I am showing quite well and it's up to them, and I've just got to do whatever I can. There are not many reasons why they don't want to put me in the Red Bull. To be honest, I don't know if I am a real contender to replace Perez. Can you interview Red Bull and find out? Even if they say Yuki is in the mix, I don't know if that is the truth or not, to be honest. I hope I am in that mix, but if not, I don't know what I should do more than this." It definitely hurts to see Tsunoda being heart-shaped from the team that he spent more than 4 years with, and with the uprising form of Racing Bulls, he will always be an attractive driver for the remainder of the grid, as Aston Martin seems to have a competitive edge over the others due to the relationship with Honda from 2026 onwards. However, even the situation in Red Bull doesn't seem as brilliant as they would like it to be, because, as I mentioned earlier in the video, replacing Perez might take a bit more commitment than usual, because he still has 1 year of his contract left, which is worth around $16 million. So far, the Austrian team has been in full command of their drivers' contracts, and we saw that with De Vries and Ricciardo, as well as Gasly and Albon back in 2019 and 2020. But nevertheless, Perez might be a bit of a difficult pill to swallow, because not only is he bringing massive financial support to the team, he is also going to ask for his payout if Red Bull doesn't want to continue the collaboration with him, which is quite fair from his side, as they are the ones who want to break the contract, not Sergio. On top of that, the team lost around $20 million by dropping from P1 to P3 in the Constructors' Championship alone. So the employees that were promised tons of bonuses are now going to be very disgruntled if they don't see any changes to the lineup that effectively caused this entire shake-up. Perez in particular, although he insists that the contract stands as it is, and when talking about it, he added, "Like I said, we are going to talk in the coming days. We will discuss the situation from both parties and see if we are able to reach an agreement. If not, like I said, I've got a contract for next year." But it's interesting to see that this is the first time that Perez has shown some vulnerability, because he has been adamant that he is the one who is going to decide when the relationship ends, and now that doesn't seem to be the realistic option. It's Red Bull who has to clear all of the speculation with Perez first, and then focus on the talented drivers like Horner labelled the Racing Bulls pair-up. With all this in mind, do you think that Perez's tenure in Red Bull is done and dusted? And if so, who do you think will replace him? Let us know in the comments below, and if you want to learn more about the greatest moments from the tyre testing, have a look at the video that's appearing on your screen right now.